one of my very favorite things, and that is homemade tea biscuits. And honestly, I have to tell you, it's probably one of the very first things that I ever consistently made. And what happened was I was given, I have to say about 40 years ago, this cookbook. It's my favorite, The Joy of Cooking cookbook. It's perfect that it's here on our show today. And my favorite page is bookmarked. And I also recognized that even before I went away to university, I had this cookbook. One of the things I found really interesting when I took my internship, and I was in the head of the dietitians in the hospital, she had this cookbook in her bookshelf in her library behind her. And that's when I knew how golden this cookbook is. What I love about the cookbook is it teaches you step by step how to do things, how to clean out a turkey, how to get it ready to cook from the very beginning step. So I love it, love it. It's my Bible. I have to tell you about these rolled tea biscuits is that I have made them so many different ways. The joy of it is every time that I have chili or stew or anything like that, especially if I'm going to a potluck, it takes 20 minutes flat from the time you start cooking this. It takes longer for the oven to heat up at 450 degrees than it takes to make these tea biscuits. That's how easy they are. So what I've done is I've already preheated my oven so that they're ready to go in right away. And for starters, what I've done is I've put the ingredients for you in the description. So we have 1 3/4 cups of flour. We have 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Interestingly enough, that these tea biscuits, traditionally you might have heard an old-fashioned way of them being called baking powder biscuits. Same thing, exactly. Now the other thing is, I put in the recipe 3 rounded teaspoons, because if you have level teaspoons, a little bit is better than not enough when it comes to the baking powder, because you want them to rise and be fluffy. And about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You need 3/4 cups of milk and 4 to 6 tablespoons of butter. And you know that I have talked about what I found the Baicel butter-like in a 1 pound size. Brilliant. It's not butter. It's not actually a saturated dairy product fat. It's 100% vegetarian, vegan. It's milk-free, and it's really palm oil and canola oil combined, half the saturated fat. And I know how well it works for baking because I've made my Christmas cookies with them also. A brilliant product. I would recommend the block version, the 1 pound brick version of the Baicel. Sometimes it's really difficult to cook with polyunsaturated margarine. The Baicel in the tub probably wouldn't work as well. In the recipe, I put butter because that's what the recipe says. So it says butter or shortening. Ugh. Anyways, they're both saturated fat. Of course, we make our pastries with shortening. Usually that's what we use. And I have already started. So what I've done is I've combined the 1 3/4 cups of flour. And I started out with a big bowl, which I really like. And I put the baking powder in already. I always mix the dry ingredients first, a little bit of salt, and I like to buy unsalted Baicel or unsalted butter. That way I have better control. Then, once you have the dry ingredients, these three ingredients together, then what I've done is I've added about 6 tablespoons of my basil. So you can use butter. You can use 4 to 6 tablespoons. So I usually just take my tablespoon and I go like this and scrape off a tablespoon, and then I put it in. So I used 6 today because that's what I felt like doing. And the thing that we do is I add it 1 tablespoon at a time, and then I kind of spread it out around my flour in a big bowl like this, really big. Then if you're lucky and you have a pastry cutter, which I used to have, but I don't know, I think it broke or I lent it to somebody. Because when you have a pastry cutter, it's the same thing. The beginning of this is the same thing as if you're making pie dough. So what you want to do is you want to cut the butter or the margarine in, or the shortening, whatever you're using. You want to cut it into the flour so it's pea-like, just the small size of peas. So that will make it flakier. So this is what I've done, and you can use a couple sharp knives to cut it in. It's better you don't just cut, like take 1/4 of a pound and put it in whole. It's better it's cut up into pieces. Then, because I don't have a pastry cutter, you can either use a couple sharp knives. You can cut it in with some sharp knives. The other thing I found works really well, and it's kind of funny, because it's blenders for your beaters, like beaters, individual beaters, because you have like the 4 blades there. So what I've been doing is I've just been like separating the basil, and I've just been working it in so that there's small pieces. I'll show you what it looks like. See, there's small pieces of the margarine, but it's pea size. So, and then that makes it really flaky. So I've worked that in. I mean, it only takes a few minutes to do that. And then what I do is I call it a well. I make a hole in the middle. So that way what I can do is I can put my liquids in there. And the only liquids in here is milk. So you could use soy milk or unflavored, unsweetened almond milk also. 3/4 of a cup. So there we go. I pour it in the middle of the well. Really excited about this. This is so fast and easy. I wanted to be able to show this to you. I'm going to get this cookbook out of the way because I know how to do this. Then what I do is I mix it. Now, the cookbook says to mix it until you can see that the tea biscuit dough is coming away from the sides. So you can see it's sticking together a little bit, and it's away from the sides, you see? Now, this is where it gets exciting, and you can really make it your own. What I often do is I love making cheddar cheese tea biscuits. So if I wanted to do that, I might even chop up some chives, or use some dried chives, or some parsley. And this is the point where I would add those ingredients. So before it gets too bound up and formed into a ball, this is a time where you can add ingredients. So this is where you could even add blueberries. You could make, you know how when you go to the store and you buy scones? This is exactly the same thing. So you could add frozen blueberries. If you added frozen blueberries, what I might do is roll them in flour first. Now, if you have any excess liquid on your cranberries, what I would do is shake the excess liquid off. You could probably use frozen cranberries also, but the thing is, when you use frozen cranberries, it's going to be a little bit bitter. So that's why I thought, well, if I use my leftover cranberry sauce, this will be fantastic. So I'm just going to basically fold it in. See? So it's still a bit white, but I just folded the cranberries in. Now, if I was using cheese, I would do the same thing. About 3/4 of a cup seems to be a really good proportion to use, whether you use 3/4 of a cup of grated cheese or 3/4 of a cup of blueberries or cranberries. You wouldn't want any more. There. Now, it's relatively stuck together. So this is the second step, and the most fun. I'm gonna make some room here, because we're gonna put it here and we're gonna roll it out. And it's fast and easy, trust me. This is not complicated in any way, shape, or form. So I've got my grandmother's rolling pin, my favorite rolling pin. And I'm going to flour my counter lightly and use some leftover flour. I always have 1/2 a cup or 3/4 of a cup of flour handy. Flour my rolling pin lightly. Then this is really neat because we're just going to, in a ball, we're going to roll everything onto your counter. That's what we're going to do. Now the recipe says to take this, form a ball, and what we're going to do is we're going to fold it. You might find a bit more moisture because of the berries, so don't worry, just add a little bit of flour to your surface. And what it says is to fold it about 8 to 10 times. So that's what I'm gonna do. You don't have to overwork the dough. Try to keep it all together. I tend to flatten it and then fold it over. That's what I tend to do. So, and then sometimes I'll flip it over. And because of the moisture that's in here, because of the berries, I'm gonna add just a little bit more flour. So number one, it's not sticking to the bottom of my surface and not sticking to my hands. So, and with experience, you'll know, it's the same as when you make pastry or shortbread cookies. You get to know how it should feel. That's the joy of using your hands. So don't be afraid, just get in there. And if it's your first time doing it, don't fear. It's a very economical product, and it may take you 1 or 2 times, but it's relatively simple. I've been making this since I was, oh my gosh, probably 15 years old, many, many years. There we go. There, that's a lot better. So again, I just flatten it and I fold it. And then we're gonna roll it. You really technically don't even have to roll it. You can just flatten the whole thing. But here you can see the layers that are being developed. See that? And that's what you want. You want it to become more flaky. Now, the recipe for this, it's relatively loose because it says even roll it in a desired thickness. So that's interesting. It should probably make at least a dozen. I like to roll it about 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch because it does raise. It maybe almost doubles when it cooks. It looks so beautiful. So you want it to kind of be equal all the way around. And the nice thing is you keep doing this until you use all of your dough. So I think my daughter made these on the weekend, and she just cut it with a knife. I have a small cookie cutter. I'm just gonna lightly flour it with the flour on my counter. And You can even use this, if you have a really nice size of a cup, you can just use a cup upside down, a drinking cup upside down. So this is about the size that I like. So this has two sides to my cutter. I'm just using the big side. Oh, the thing I love about this recipe is on your cookie sheet, guess what? You don't have to grease the cookie sheet at all. They say don't grease the cookie sheet. So that makes me really happy. And look at, this is the longest part of the whole system, is doing it this way. Just cutting it. Doesn't take any time at all. And then save the little bits that are left over, because you can re-roll it and recut it. So we're probably going to get about 12 or so on here. And go ahead, like if it's sticking out, just push some of the dough on the side and then you can just cut it. Because it's all going to come together when it cooks anyways. It's beautiful. So again, you can really play with it. If I was doing it with, say, frozen blueberries, one thing I might do is I might add a teaspoon or so of just granulated sugar, just for a little sweetness. Yeah, this is fantastic. So see how easy this is? One other thing I wanted to mention to everybody, besides happy holidays, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas, is that this is officially the last cooking show of the year. So we are going to be celebrating, and next Monday, for one lucky winner, we're going to have a draw for one person, and they're going to win a $25 gift certificate to the restaurant of their choice. So, and we know the restaurants really need our help the most that we can give them, our support. So you see, this is what I had left over. This is the dough that I had left over after I cut that. I cut about 10 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reshape this. Like I said, you don't even really have to roll it. You can roll it out a little bit if you want. I should be able to get 2 more out of this and make this an even dozen. This is what I'm hoping, I think. Should be doable. There we go. Then I think it bakes for about, oh, let me see, 12 to 16 minutes or so. So after about 12 minutes, I wrote it in the directions, keep an eye out. Now, like I said, one lucky winner is going to win a $25 gift card to a restaurant of their choice. How do you qualify? All you have to do to qualify is to either comment or like this video. That's all you have to do, any of the videos. So if you're looking at any of the videos that have already been posted, you can like or comment them. And then I'm going to draw one lucky winner next Monday and contact you personally and ask you where you would like a gift card for. And that will be fantastic, because then you can order directly from the restaurant a dinner for yourself, maybe your family, and you can use that $25 gift card towards a restaurant of your choice. So that's really nice. I also find it really nice too when we're ordering direct from the restaurants for a pickup order versus Uber Eats or DoorDash or Skip the Dishes, because those places like Uber Eats, they're taking a large percentage of the profits away from the restaurants. So that's really nice if you can remember that. And think about that. Think about our restaurants. One other thing that's really interesting is that with these biscuits, if you either melt some butter, or if you have you can see those right here, right? The biscuits. So what I do is I have a pastry brush and a little bit of milk. So you can use either melted butter or some milk. And what we're going to do is we're just gonna brush some on top of the biscuits before we put them in the oven so they brown really nice and evenly. It's interesting because you can see already with the baking powder that they're starting to rise already. These are so happy. Oh, such a beautiful color. So if you're having a nice New Year's dinner and say you're having turkey or, you know, ham or something, you might want to make some cheese tea biscuits, or you might want to make cranberry biscuits. See how beautiful they are? Can you see them? I love that. Now all I do is put them in the oven, wait 12 minutes, and I set my timer, and boom, away I go. It's all ready. So this has been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for joining me. I'll see you next Monday, and Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for joining.